When a girl enters puberty, her period begins. The physical changes that occur during that stage of development identify her with all other women. She's still emotionally immature, but that monthly responsibility and the effects of hormonal infusion are significant signs that she's becoming a woman.
Puberty doesn't have the same significance for males in our culture. There's no rite of passage or commonly accepted line of demarcation from boyhood to manhood, and no clear understanding of what maturity means. My rite of passage came when I went home on leave from the Navy just before going to Vietnam. My dad had me put on my uniform. Then he took me to the local Polish American club. My uncles, who'd been instrumental in my growing up years, and all my dad's lifelong friends were waiting there. Some had served in the military as far back as World War I. They all stood and toasted me that I might have a safe return. These men understood that it was now my turn to lay down my life as a man. From that day onward, my dad treated me differently. Although I still gave him deference as my father, he treated me like a man.
During our decade at the retreat center, we'd often ask men when their father started to treat them as a man. The responses were often painful. Many men, especially those who hadn't served in the military, never felt as though their father treated them as men. And some of these guys were in their 50s.
Something needs to change, particularly within the family of Jesus. A boy is not a man, but when and under what conditions should he be accepted as one? Paul makes it clear that there is a distinct point at which a boy has to leave behind anything that hinders them from becoming men. When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put childish ways behind me. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 11.
Christendom has done a poor job in dealing with this issue. There are too many adult boys whom no one prepared to be men.
To the emotional pain of many women, these overgrown adolescents have married.
But they've never learned to be responsible, nor to sacrifice self for the sake of others.
We'll discuss this more in a later lesson on parenting, but stop for a moment and consider the Jewish rite of bar mitzvah for males.
At a bar mitzvah, a boy becomes a son of the commandments. He's now personally responsible for keeping the teachings of God.
It takes a great deal of time and effort for mature men to guide and mentor a young man to prepare him for this event. During this preparation period, the boy's study of God's Word intensifies. It's intended that he learn to apply biblical truth to his life.
In other cultures and in tribal societies, a boy undergoes a period of preparation so that he might meet the requirements of responsible manhood. This transition from boyhood to manhood is then publicly recognized.
My Nigerian friend James Odorindu told me that in his tribe, a boy calls all his uncles father. Each male relative has the same responsibility and interest as the father does in preparing a boy to become a respected and responsible man. Then he'll never bring shame on the name of his family or his tribe.
As the restoration continues, this sense of a family of men in faith communities will cooperate together to prepare their boys for responsible manhood.
But for this to happen, Christian men need to reacquaint themselves with the biblical facets of maturity.
At the same time, they need guidance in how to develop these character aspects in the young men they come alongside.
May I be prophetic and share with you what the restored, intergenerational preparation for a Christian rite of passage would look like. Our boys will no longer be separated from their fathers in church services and be herded into Sunday school or youth groups. The mature men themselves will recognize their combined responsibility as spiritual fathers to all the young men in their faith community, including those who have no dads at home. Men who need help in acting responsibly will be discipled by the older men so they can learn how to fulfill their role as father. Do you realize that organized systems of Sunday school and youth groups are often the means of supporting paternal irresponsibility. These will be discarded because of their true fruit. These organized programs produce activity-oriented, self-centered, stunted adolescents who have little motivation to become responsible men. It takes older, wiser men to raise a man.
At our retreat center, we rejoiced in the results when men came together multi-generationally. Older men have often tasted the tender mercy of our God. The wisdom and experience they shared stirred younger males to press on to maturity. Biblical male development calls for a man to learn responsibility. Then when he marries, he'll be responsible not only to God for himself, but also for the wife and family God gives him.
Remember, God doesn't accept excuses. He didn't accept Adam's, nor will he hear those that husbands may give him today. Here are a few more questions for you to answer and discuss. Does your father treat you as a man? Yes or no? If yes, how did this occur? If no, why do you think this is so?
If you're married, do your wife and others regard you as a responsible man, both toward God and your family? Ask them for feedback.
Are there younger men or boys in your life with whom you could share these preparation insights and help them along the path of maturity?